3 months before my NDIS audit, I thought I was fine. I had systems, I had files, I'd been careful. I ran a tight operation, or at least I thought I did. 2 weeks out, I started pulling documentation to prepare. And that's when I found these gaps. Not one or two, enough to make my stomach drop. The night before the audit, I was at the kitchen table at about midnight, just trying to patch things that should have been sorted months earlier. And I want to be clear about who I am, you guys. Camille DG, I'm a veteran nurse with over 20,000 hours in clinical boots on the ground. I've spent my entire career in environments where documentation compliance was non-negotiable. I knew what compliance looked like. I'd lived it. And I was still caught out. So if that happened to somebody like me, what's sitting in your gaps right now that you don't even know about? So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what NDIS auditors are looking for. The 4 specific mistakes that trip providers up every single time, why they keep happening even in well-run businesses, and what it looks like to actually fix the root cause, you guys, and not just scramble the night before the audit. So what do auditors actually look at? Let me start with something most providers get wrong. Well, they think an NDIS audit is just a general review, like someone's going to walk into the office, have a look around, feel the vibe of the place, and form an impression. That is not what happens. This is work from the NDIS practice standards. They have to. There are specific modules, specific evidence requirements, and specific things that they're going to ask to see from you. It's not a vibe check. It's an actual documentation trail. And the thing about documentation trails is that they either exist or they don't. So there's no partial credit for meaning to do it. There's no goodwill points for having a nice office and caring deeply about your participants. What auditors are actually looking at consistently across every damn audit is the evidence. Now, can you demonstrate what you said you would do for each participant is what you guys actually do? Can you show the records? Can you show the worker was qualified to deliver that specific support? Can you show the incident was reported, if there were any? Can you show the consent was current? If you can show it, you're fine. If you can't show it, even if it happened, you have a finding. And that's the part that blindsides people all the time. The care was delivered, the support was real, but what if the documentation isn't there to prove it? It's the same damn thing as if it didn't happen. So that's the mindset shift you have to be in. That's the mindset shift you need before you make mistakes. So let's talk about the 4 mistakes. These are the ones I've seen come up time and time again from my own experience, from speaking with the hundreds of providers, and from watching what actually generates these findings. So mistake number 1, documentation gaps on shift records. They're either incomplete or missing progress notes. This is the most common finding and the one that providers are least aware of until they're looking at it under audit conditions. Just pull up a sample of shifts for each participant and check whether the notes exist, whether they're detailed enough, and whether they reflect what the support plan says should have happened. Now, one undocumented shift can trigger a broader review of that participant's entire record. And most providers have no idea what their documentation completion rate actually is because nobody's tracking it in real time. It looks fine until someone actually pulls it up. Mistake number 2, worker certifications. Now, every worker delivering NDIS supports, they do need a current first aid certificate, NDIS worker orientation module completion, and the relevant worker screening clearances. You know this. The problem is that certifications expire, and in a growing team, keeping that current is something that drifts. It just drifts away. Now, providers assume HR are across it. HR assumes someone set a reminder. The worker assumes that their employer will tell them when it's due, when it's coming up. And then 6 months later, you've got a worker who's been delivering shifts on a lapsed certificate. And that's on you as a provider, not on the worker. It's on you as the provider. Number 3, reports not lodged within the timeframes. Now, the NDIS Commission requires reportable incidents to be lodged within specific windows, right? 24 hours for these immediate priority incidents, 5 business days for other incidents. Now, most providers know they're supposed to report, but they're hazy on actually which incidents cross the threshold for a formal lodgement versus an internal log. And here's what happens. An incident occurs. Then it gets noted internally. Someone intends to review whether it needs to go to the commission or not. Then life gets busy. The window closes. And now you have an unreported, reportable incident sitting in your records, which becomes an audit finding and potentially something more serious. Now, mistake number 4, and support plan documentation out of date. Now, this is where most providers this is the one that they find last, and it's the one that makes you feel the most exposed when you do. But consent forms, plans, and funding agreements need to reflect what's actually happening in delivery. Now, if a participant's needs have changed, if the supports have shifted, if the goals have been updated, documentation needs to reflect that. It needs to be signed and needs to be current. If you're delivering support based on a plan that's 12 months old and hasn't been reviewed and the participant's situation has changed, that is a gap, you guys. And even if the support you're delivering is genuinely right for that participant. Now, the documentation doesn't match reality, and that's what the auditor will see. Now, why do these mistakes keep happening? Here's the part I really want to hear, because these 4 mistakes aren't happening because providers are careless. Everyone's trying to do the best they can. Now, they're not happening because people don't care about compliance. They're happening because of how most providers think about compliance. This gets treated as a once-a-year event, thing that the whole team has to prepare for, and something that just exists in the background until the audit notice arrives and then suddenly becomes urgent. And when you treat compliance as a periodic task, are invisible by design because nobody's looking in between the audits. Documentation will drift. The certifications will lapse quietly. Incident reporting gets inconsistent, goes stale. And you don't see any of it until you start pulling out these documentation, which points the gaps are already there and the timeline to fix them is really short. Manual tracking makes this worse. So when compliance is managed through spreadsheets, shared drives, and someone's memory, the system has no way to flag that it's drifting. It just sits there looking okay until it isn't. Now, the root cause isn't negligence. It's that compliance was never set up as a live continuous system. It was set up as a filing exercise, and filing exercises always leave these gaps. Now, what does continuous compliance actually look like? What does it look like to fix this properly and not scramble just before the next audit? You got to fix the root cause, you guys. It means treating compliance as a live system, not a periodic task. So every shift that closes should automatically generate the documentation record, not because a support worker remembered to write a note because the system captured it. Worker certifications should have, live expiry tracking with automatic alerts well before the deadline, not a spreadsheet that someone updates when they remember. Report thresholds should be built in. How incidents are logged internally, so the system flags whether a formal commission report is required before the window closes, not after someone just realizes they missed it. Support plans and consent documents should really have a review cadence built in with alerts, like when they're approaching expiry, so nothing silently goes out of date while supports continue to be delivered. And that's what continuous compliance looks like. Not more paperwork, not more admin hours, but a full system that tracks compliance in real time and surfaces the gaps before they become findings. And I'll be honest with you, that's exactly what SpeciShift is built to do. Documentation, worker certification tracking, incident report thresholds, support plan review alerts, all live, all visible, and all flagged automatically because I helped build this after living these midnight kitchen table moments. And I don't want any other provider to have to go through that same thing. So if anything in this video landed, if you recognize one of those 4 mistakes are happening in your own operation, or if you're not actually sure what your documentation completion rate looks like right now, that's worth taking seriously. Not because I'm here to scare you, but because the gap between I think we're okay, I think we're fine, and damn it, we have a finding is just one documentation pull away. Copy the link in the description, sit in your browser, and see if you and your team qualify for our 14-day free trial. So we'll walk you through the actual compliance setup, what's being tracked, what's drifting, what needs attention. We do this with full human support all the way through. Even though we love AI, you might even get me on the call. And if you're watching this and you've already been through any thorough NDIS audit moments, drop a comment below. Tell me what caught you guys off guard, what you wished you'd known beforehand. It might help somebody else. Also, I read every single comment, and those answers, hey, let's help each other. If this was useful, share it with another provider, because the more of us who get this right, the better the sector looks like and the more protected every participant is, which is what I pray for every day as a nurse. Till the next video, you guys, take care.